Being a UFC fighter, what every MMA fighter with aspirations dreams of, can become reality. But how can you even get into the UFC? Nowadays, it's not just you have to be a good fighter, there's certain different ways how to get into UFC. There's 5 ways. Let me show you and explain all the 5 ways in this video. Hello and welcome to Bloodsport MMA.
Salam alaikum. Alaikum salam.
Whether you're a fighter yourself and you try to figure out how to get into UFC, or you're just a fan who just is interested in the knowledge, like how do fighters even get there and all of that, let me explain to you the 5 different paths to get into the UFC. Number 1 is the most important, the best one, I would say, the easiest one, most effective one, and the best one is Dana White's Contender Series. Dana White's Contender Series is not something that has been around forever, but since quite a while now, it produced several champions already, like Sugar Sean O'Malley, like Jamal Hill. Like it's a talent fabric in a way. And it's a very simple system that is very effective in all ways. It is on Tuesday nights, where there's otherwise no fight, so it's cool for the fans as well, it sells. Fighters who, wherever you are in the world, do good, have a good record already, can get selected by the matchmakers to fight in the Contender Series. And it's basically just like a job interview. It is, I think Dana even calls it the craziest job interview in the world or something like that, because you get a chance to just, whoever you are, doesn't matter where you come from, whatever.
You need to find someone that can slow you down.
Your record also doesn't really matter too much unless you're like 20 years old and have like 3 wins only and stuff like that. Dana normally doesn't sign those people. He likes experienced guys who have been in there before, you know what I mean? But you just have to win your fight in a nice fashion. If you get a finish, that helps a lot, and make it entertaining, and you get into the UFC. That's what makes it so perfect in my opinion, because boring fighters do not really get into UFC from the Contender Series normally. So it encourages you to be exciting, which is exactly what you're looking for as a fan, right? So Dana White's Contender Series, of course, you get invited. You can't just apply or something. The matchmakers would hit you up if you fight in CFFC, all those UFC Fight Pass organizations, that helps a lot. But the UFC always looks around for fighters that could make it to the Contender Series. And also if you lose on a Contender Series, or you have a close decision and Dana might not end up signing you, because just because you win, you don't get signed. Only if Dana really finds you exciting and sees you in the UFC, you get signed. If you do not get signed in the first place, you will be the first address that they go to for short notice opportunities. So whenever a guy in your weight class falls out of his UFC fight, you might get a call, hey, you wanna fight on 1 week's notice in the UFC? And because you take that fight on 1 week's notice, you automatically get a 3-fight contract. Always when you take those short notice UFC fights, you get a 3-fight contract, which is very rewarding, right? So that is the first option. The second option, now the tier list is not really ranked anymore, because the Contender Series is by far the most effective one. But number 2 is the traditional one, is the Ultimate Fighter. It happens once a year, so it's not that effective to really go for that, but it happens once a year. It is a crazy experience, obviously, because you will be there for several weeks. You have to win several fights in a short amount of time. So I would say it's definitely the most dangerous one, because you have to win several fights in a row. They normally happen in a very short time frame and all of that. You don't get paid a hell lot of money. And yeah, but it's a very interesting one. You get quite some clout because it's a whole series and all of that, even though it's not that popular anymore. But that's a way to get into the UFC. Normally you have to do tryouts, or at least back in the day you had to do tryouts to even get considered for the Ultimate Fighter, because they want interesting characters, right? And also you can be from anywhere in the world, doesn't really matter. You just have to win all your fights, and then you get into the finals. And most of the times they sign both guys that went into the finals, unless you get knocked out in 30 seconds or you're just boring.
You suck, boom, roasted.
But normally when you're in the finals, you get signed, and when you win the season, I think you get a special kind of contract and all of that, and of course a special status, because they love to sell their Ultimate Fighter winners, right? That's number 2. Number 3 is Dana White looking for a fight. That's a very rare one, because sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't. Like, it's not like it has a real schedule. Whenever there's a special event, like for example, Korean Zombie just held an event and Dana went to that event Normally they go for 1 or 2 names that they have in mind already, the matchmakers already were looking out for, and they have their final stage to prove their worth. But also if you're just on that card, those are normally random local fight cards of lower leagues, and he's probably watching like the last 4 fights, like the top fights. And if you have a very interesting performance, a very dominating performance, and he's impressed by you, he may end up signing you. Now, the problem is it started to become a lot of a Contender Series tryout. A lot of times now Dana goes to those events and just signs you for the Contender Series if he likes you, which obviously, yeah, it's cool, but you would hope, like Marab, for example, is from Dana White looking for a fight, that you get signed immediately. It still happens sometimes if you're very excited that they sign you immediately, but normally they make you go through the Contender Series, but at least you get your shot at the Contenders by being at looking for a fight. Number 4 is the Road to UFC. Road to UFC is a tournament that normally is in Asia, at least lately has been in Asia. I think it has been in other places as well before. I think they plan to do it in Africa as well and stuff like that, where they go to a certain area and they hold a tournament that spans over a whole year, I believe, where it's not on a UFC card or something. It's normally the day before a UFC card, or yeah, I think it's normally on a Friday or something before the UFC card, where you fight it's a whole tournament, it's a whole event. It's not like it's just one fight, it's a whole event, just like Contender Series. But it's all just people from one area, like China, for example, or Asia. I think it's normally Asia, so wherever you are from Asia. And yeah, you get signed to that tournament through your manager, through the matchmakers seeing you on the local scenes in Asia or whatever. Then you have, just like the Ultimate Fighter, several fights, but on a longer time span, where if you win all of those fights, you get to the finals. The finals, just like the Ultimate Fighter finals, are on an official UFC card, but you're still not signed yet. You still wear the looking for a fight, the Road to UFC merch. You're not wearing the UFC shorts. And if you win the finals, same as the Ultimate, it's kind of like the Ultimate Fighter, just not a TV series where you go into a house and all of that. But it's basically the same process, just on a longer time frame, as I said, through a whole year. And it doesn't really have that much exposure, unless maybe in Asia, but I feel like we people in the Western world, I don't think I know any Road to UFC winner by name. Probably also because their names are pretty hard to say, but yeah, it doesn't have that many eyes on it, but still it's a good way to get known in Asia at least, or wherever the tournament is, and get into the UFC, right? So that's number 4. So we have all those possibilities to get into UFC through proving yourself in a UFC related setting. Now, number 5 is the old school way to get into UFC. Before all of those things existed, of course, the Ultimate Fighter exists since forever, but the other 3 are pretty new, more or less. So how you got into the UFC back in the day, and it's still possible, even though it's rare, is by being a star. If you are in Bellator, doesn't exist anymore, in PFL, in 1FC, KSW, you name it, and you're really a star, or a really big name or a big draw, like Reinier de Ridder was. Reinier de Ridder is how you say it in Dutch, right? How he was in one championship, was a double champ and all of that. How Patricio Pitbull was in Bellator. He was I think also 2-division champion, but at least a long reigning champion at featherweight. Michael Chandler, Patchy Mix now, all of those guys, if you are a household name and you have the possibility to leave the organization, your contract is up or whatever with 1FC or whatever you are, and the UFC feels like you're a big name already, they don't need to put you through the Contender Series, they know who you are, you don't have to prove yourself anymore, and then you can also get into the UFC. But that's of course the most risky one, because a lot of fighters try to do that, but they never really get signed, because the UFC will only sign you if they really see value in you and they really like you. And of course, then the UFC will just offer you a certain amount of money, and if you don't want it, you will not get it. That's what happened with Soldic. Soldic was offered an immediate UFC contract. He then refused to take it, because ONE FC paid him better, and now he's stuck in ONE FC where not really many people are watching him, and I think he even lost 2 fights in a row, and lately he had a crazy win, but like his stock went down a lot ever since. In the UFC, maybe he would have earned less for his first fight, but he would have been a superstar, a potential superstar, and had the potential to earn a lot more money. But yeah, he did not want to take the bait.
This is not a career, this is an opportunity.
So those are the 5 possibilities. Dana White's Contender Series, The Ultimate Fighter, Dana White looking for a fight, road to UFC, and being a star in another organization. Those are the 5 ways to get into the UFC. Which one do you think is the most effective? Which one would you take if you were a fighter? Or if you are a fighter, which one are you taking or planning to take? Of course, you need a good manager. For all of them, you can't just sign up for them. But those were the sum ups. Write it in the comments. Whatever you think about it. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. All the good stuff. Stay bloody, you guys. And until the next one. Bye-bye. Bloodsport out.